reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. MMO Reporter's PAX Prime coverage is brought to you by GoDaddy. Get 30% off your next purchase at GoDaddy by using the code MMO30. Some limitations apply. See website for details.
Table here with who in the hell are all these people? Because I'm sure you probably don't recognize them yet. So let's start with Christopher Ridley, producer extraordinaire. Howdy. Howdy. Lance Hope, producer mediocre. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I had to use extraordinaire. Lance is awesome. Please don't cut my stuff. Chris Moffat, our art director. One of our art directors. We got Ian Fisher right down here, design director. Mother. Yes, that's Mother, if you guys have seen him online. And we got Patrick Hudson right here, who is our benevolent overlord. Hola. So, before we get started, I want to remind everybody, stay to the end. There is free stuff at the end on top of the free stuff you already got. And if that wasn't good enough, you can join us later tonight over at Rock Bottom for free booze. Better free stuff. Just free stuff all day. So that's at 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. tonight. Drinks free until 8. Join us over there, please. We'll all be there. You can ask follow-up questions if you don't get everything in today. And we'll be having fun eating food and drinking. So join us for that. Let's go ahead and get started. How many of you have actually heard of Robot Entertainment before today? Nice. I like it. So, real quick overview of who we are. Who's Robot Entertainment? We are a 55-person studio in Plano, Texas. We're just north of Dallas, in an area with a handful of other small developers. We are a multi-platform developer. We've made games for iOS, Android, Xbox Live Arcade, PC, and Mac. We are 4 times more handsome than Gearbox, proven by science. We have shipped 4 original games in 4 years. We'll get into some of that as we go through the day here. And we have a beer garden in our studio. Seriously. Do you want to tell why we have a beer garden in the studio?
We should definitely tell the story of why.
Tell the story of why we have a beer garden in the studio. It's good. It's fun. You want to hear it.
Way back in the day when we were working on, which we'll get into this slide too, when we were ensemble working on the age games, and you used to have to, it wasn't just like you got done with the game and you put it up on Steam by pressing a button. You actually had to have somebody take a gold master to a factory where they like printed them out, put them in boxes, and put them on trucks and take them to stores. When we get a game done at that point, we used to go out and celebrate because you've been working a lot of hours at that point to celebrate. I don't know why we picked this place. There's a place in Plano, Texas called the Bavarian. It's like a family-run German restaurant. And I don't know how
like run by a German family. Very authentic.
We started going there when the company was 2 dozen people, and we would ship, and they told us basically after we went, we were let off a little steam after finishing a couple weeks of crunch, and they said, don't ever come here again. So then when we got our next game done, and we were growing to like 75, we showed up, and we took over the place, and we drank a little, and they said, no, seriously, don't ever come here again. So when we went to go there again, and we called them and said, hey, it's also studios.
Yes, we changed the studio name.
Yeah, they wouldn't take our reservations, so we had to call them for years and be like, hey, this is Texas Instruments, we're going to be at your price, we need a reservation for $100. We were a number of different companies, and they would always see us coming through the door, oh, fuck these guys.
Can you say that? I like the visual of like random companies going for a lunch and just they can't get in because they've been banned and they don't know it. Okay, so the rest of our studio is actually pretty cool too. You can see on the pictures there, we've actually got our studio split up between 4 different color pods, yellow, blue, orange, and green. Everybody's on wheels. So if we need to move somebody to a different pod, we just unplug them from the wall, slide them to another place, and plug them back in.
Which has never happened.
That has happened.
It's happened Thursday.
And there's a better picture of our beer garden where we do all of our company meetings. We watch the World Cup in there on the big screen. You can see on the picture. So it's our collective gathering place. So happy to be here to do that. How many of you were fans of Ensemble Studios? No raising hands. Cheer. All right. So Robot Entertainment was started from a group of people that came out of the Ensemble Studios group when that studio was closed down. So Ensemble Studios is probably most notable for Age of Empires. Any Age players? How many people at this table worked on the original Age? Chris, Ian? Okay. These hands are going to go up. Watch as we go through. Age 2? Beer garden came in handy then. I didn't put Age of Mythology in here, but Age of Myth players. Age 3. How many people at the table worked on Age 3? I get it, everybody, right? Except me and you. I'm with you, buddy. Okay. Do we want to talk about the Age games at all? I mean, or we want to keep rolling through going?
You have a lot of slides.
Yeah, a lot of stories. Yeah, we've got 76 slides tonight at the bar. Yes, come to the bar, get some good stories. So after the Age games, Ensemble very famously went on to work on a little game that some of you might have played. It's the highest selling RTS on consoles ever. Halo Wars. Halo Wars players? Who was that over there? Somebody's... That guy. You still play? Oh, man. It was so exciting until that point. Put the trophy out. Get him out of here. There were a lot of projects that happened at Ensemble, little prototypes and things like that. So they did the Age games, Ensemble did Halo Wars, and then, Ian, do you remember the name of that other big project you worked on?
Yeah, I do.
What was it called?
Thanks for bringing it up.
What was it called? I can't remember.
Titan.
Titan? Oh, you mean that Titan?
Yeah, that's the one.
That one? Okay. So, we worked on a little project called Titan. I don't think you guys have seen this before. That little piece. But we worked on that for, I believe, 5 long years?
No,
It's about
not really.
Between that and Halo Wars, it was 5 long years I think we
Depends
worked
on
on.
how you count. We first started pitching an MMO inside of Ensemble and with Microsoft in 98. We got shafted the first time because MS had signed up some guys to do a game tournament at Ashron's Call. We had another opportunity when Microsoft was still involved with Sigil's game. That was the other one. So we missed a couple opportunities to do it. We had been working on prototypes since I remember it was the Ultima Online was kind of like one of the inspirations. And it wasn't really until we had been pitching for a long time that there was an opportunity for, a lot of us were playing massively multiplayer games at the time, and they were pretty hardcore. You had to be involved. And we were pitching this idea for hey, there's a market for an accessible MMO. And it turns out there was, and we didn't get a chance to do it, but that whole World of Warcraft thing. So after us pitching the game, that idea for a number of years, and all of a sudden all the people that had been saying, this is ridiculous, we're not going to do it MMO, nobody wants to do these are niche games for geeks, all the same people came back and were like, hey, have you guys heard about this World of Warcraft thing? Yeah, we have heard about it, thanks for bringing it up. But then we got an opportunity to go and start working on it, mostly because of that, because people saw that game and saw the potential to prove the case, and we got to start working on it. And that eventually turned into, I think on its third incarnation, it turned into I don't even know where that came from, the whole point. It didn't start out as a Halo MMO, and then obviously us working with MS, they came back in and they're like, what do you think about using Halo for this? Well, that sounds like a pretty good idea to me.
Seems like it could work. And after, we'll go with 5 long years. After 5 long years, Microsoft shut down Ensemble Studios. Let's hear it. However, there was a silver lining because Robot Entertainment opened up in 2009 also. And Robot Entertainment started out getting back to our roots with a brand new Age game. Age of Empires Online was the first game we worked on. Want to talk about how that came about? How we got that going?
Age of Empires Online? Why don't you tell Fish the background on just really Age 4 to begin with?
Yeah, we started out with the idea. We love all the Age games that we've done so far, but we felt like when we got to Age 3, there's a push constantly to add new content to things and to give people a new experience. And so, we went from base Age to Age of Kings, and we added things, and we did AOM, and we went to Age 3. And by the time we got to Age 3, we were looking back on the game and the complexity we added, a number of systems, and a good many of us thought like there was definitely a market to be made. There was a game to be made by going back and going to our roots. So we started kind of doing a version of Age that was built around. It was the old caveman, kind of the Age 1 setting with more of a pure, stripped back Age of Kings style gameplay. And we prototyped that very, very quickly inside the studio. And this is before any of the studio getting shut down. We had been working on that, I think, maybe for about 8 months. And our plan was kind of to go on a Steam release and to try to aim for, at that point we hadn't seen really this was before mobile, but we thought that really cheap netbooks were going to be what people were going to be playing on. So we were aiming for a game that people could get on netbooks and it could be all completely digital release, and we were working on that. And then when Microsoft came along and shut down the studio, they were still interested in the game, but they weren't interested in the vision so much as what we had for it. It didn't start out looking the way that we had when the Age of Empires was being shipped. They wanted a more casual, social version of Age of Empires. So
it was the heyday of Zynga and Zynga games, and this is the future of gaming. Social games were the rage.
Yeah, so the Age 4 that we were working on got turned into start with making this more casual, social version of Age. So we did our best to take the core secret sauce of the Age game and fit it into the social casual that they were looking for. Which now I'm actually fairly happy, you know, but I mean, AOEO is not like what we consider like a really great Age game. But one of the things that we proved for a long time, we were pushing like, hey, we really ought to be putting the Age games out on Steam instead of putting the Age games on Microsoft's thing. Which no one has ever downloaded a game from ever or liked. But now they're like this top selling things. But now they
already made an email from that.
It's not like this is nothing we've ever said to them before, but they know too. The guys that are running it now, they're smart enough that they went and put it on Steam and they're like, hey, look at this. It's the top selling Age game up on Steam. It's been in the top seller list for the last like year. Yeah, it has. We might have mentioned that to you 4 years ago. You should have done it first. But I'm happy to see that at least the lineage of the stuff that we did lives on and is still popular, even now with the versions of it that are being put out. I'm kind of sad that we didn't get a chance to do a fourth or a fifth, but we got the ones we did.
So we knew as a studio that we were not always going to be doing Age games. We wanted to start doing some of our own original games. We had a lot of ideas. Like I said, there was a lot of creative energy at Ensemble to try other prototypes and stuff. So while we were working on Age, over in the corner, we spent some time toying around with a few ideas. I don't know which Chris, I don't know if you want to say anything about this, but essentially we were developing a toolkit, right?
Yeah, so while the guys were working on Age in one side of the office, the rest of us were working on just discovering new game ideas and trying out a bunch of stuff, because we had been working on RTS games for, some of us for 15 years at that point. It's a long time. So we tried out a bunch of different game ideas, and one of the things that we did, which we'll get to when you see the org stuff, is a toolkit where you could, the idea was literally we would give you guys a toolkit, you can make whatever game you want out of it, and we really came up with some great tools, and that's going to lead into where we get to orgs in a second.
I'll go ahead and segue this for you. What did our toolkit turn into?
It was called Saber, and then it turned into Orcs Must Die.
Yeah, so the toolkit we were doing became a little fantasy game called Saber. It was a small team working in, I showed you those pods earlier. Over in the corner of Orange Pod, there was a little group working on that. And they made this small fantasy project, and it was very serious because fantasy is serious business.
So if you play Orcs, you'll probably see some characters you recognize in there, I would think, right? Yes.
Definitely.
Yep. And actually the Archer, the elf down there is the Guardians in the first game, I think.
Yep.
It's down there.
And this is what it originally looked like when we started toying with it. It was the first version was kind of a fantasy RPG thing, right, Chris?
Yeah, it was a fantasy RPG. It was exactly with the toolkit assigned to it. So the toolkit side of it, which I mentioned earlier, was literally you could take your cursor and draw it on the ground and then hit a button and a dungeon would appear, which was really awesome. You could just draw out whatever shapes you want. You could do it in multi-levels, three-dimensional, all that stuff. It was a really cool tool. And then we started making this version of the game, Saber, with that tool set, and it was exactly what you'd expect from a heavy fantasy RPG. It was very serious, very dark, nothing like the game that would become in a month after that.
Yes, it started getting a little bit lighter.
Yeah, we started getting kind of more of a stylized look for the characters, and we started pushing proportions. You can kind of see the wizard here in this shot. He's a little more stylized than the other image that was up there, but we started pushing the upper body on the big guy and smaller legs and things like that. But this was actually the first ogre we had before he became what he is in Orcs Must Die.
And it's sort of the war mage in the top right corner.
It's like the war mage on juice.
Yeah. We had to sit him out for 2 months.
So while we were working on this, we sort of were playing with ideas about games we were playing, things like horde mode style games, and then we started working on some of the traps, and that's when flip traps happened.
That's the guy.
Yes. Flip traps, push traps, anything physics-based turned the playtest lab into like a comedy club. It was just constant laughing. And it was at that point that we realized, okay, this is all wrong. We gotta change.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so when we were making that RPG, we just decided that wasn't the route we were gonna go. So what game did we want to make with a toolkit, and what could we do quickly? Because we wanted to get something out kind of fast and test the Steam model and all those other things that Ian was talking about. So we started just messing with things and went through a bunch of different ideas like tower defense games, but no, we don't really care for that by itself. We like dungeon keeper type games, that'd be kind of cool. And then what if we put ourselves down in the middle of the ground while we're making a tower defense game, which led to this. And then, what if we add physics to it? And what if we made them say stupid things when they die?
And that's when all
That's the magic.
the jibbing conversations happen. And we had lots of conversations about how much like blood and pieces should happen. And the more we added, the funnier it got.
And that's what really pushed the design of the orcs too. I mean, we kind of looked at different ideas and explored some different styles for the orcs, but we ultimately landed on just something that was really funny. I mean, we wanted them to just kind of look goofy and like something that you didn't. They looked, kind of a little intimidating, but you wanted to feel like you wanted to hurt them.
We'll show some of that. I want to jump though to the process we went through when we changed the tone of everything. It became obvious that we needed a name that fit the game, and so this was a very interesting process for us. We went through dozens of names, and then who originally suggested Orcs Must Die?
We think it was Chris, but we're not sure.
He won't claim it.
I won't claim it.
It was Chris. You want to talk about the email chain?
Yeah, so we sent out an email to the company, and we got it down to Onslaught and Orcs Must Die, and asked people what they would name it. And so we had 50 people in the company, and it came back almost dead split. 25 people wanted it to be called Onslaught, and 25 people wanted it to be called Orcs Must Die. And so someone had to make a decision, so we made the decision, a couple of us, like, it's going to be Orcs Must Die. And I got an email from a couple of people in the company said, look, why would you choose the name that half of us dislike? Like, well, that's exactly why we choose Orcs Must Die. Because if everybody liked it, it would probably be the most watered down thing possible. So whether you hate it or whether you love it, Orcs Must Die elicits a response. So, and it's turned out to be a great move for the franchise.
And I remember there was a general sort of mantra, like, if it seemed like a scary, bad idea at first, we should just try it and see where it went, and those turned into the best ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say, we learned to trust our instinct, or maybe we learned to ignore our instinct and just try to do funny stuff and push it, because we had made serious games forever. Like, there's not a lot of jokes in Age of Empires or Halo Wars, so this time we really wanted to see what we could get away with.
So, as Patrick mentioned, we went with Orcs Must Die. That went well. It was 2011 Strategy Simulation Game of the Year for AIS Awards. Just want to look at a little bit of how the game evolved as we made that name change. You can see up here, Moth, I don't know if you want to talk about any of this, but sort of the evolution of where the game went from being more serious to finding a lighter tone.
Yeah, so the top two images I think were from early Saber, and it was kind of sort of drab and kind of. Can you hear me? How can you hear me now?
Talking that voice the rest of the time.
So so we really wanted the game to have a lighthearted, colorful kind of tone and vibe, and just really rich, kind of environments. And so we really started putting color into the lots of underlighting and different things like that. We would put into the levels, and we just. It helped the characters really kind of pop off the environment too, because most of them are all indoors, in these fortresses, and they're kind of dark but colorful, but we really wanted the characters to kind of pop off of that.
Yeah, and actually that was one of the limitations of that early drawing tool that we used to make the game, is we were kind of stuck mostly indoors with the tool we made, so it was really important for Seamoff and the rest of the crew to make it not seem so dank and match the rest of the personality of the game.
Want to talk about traps?
Yeah, we explored a lot of different ideas. We had, like you can see here, the rolling logs trap, which actually ended up just being the rolling log in the map. All push traps and different things like that. We had you know, it's really cool at Robot because the artists can just kind of explore tons of ideas, and then design can kind of choose, which ones are going to work best. So there's a lot of different things that we even still to this day haven't used that we hope to eventually, continue to add to the game.
I want to know who did the push trap one because that blood tells a story and that scares me.
Yeah, it looks like there's an orc trap under.
Someone had a lot of fun with that.
That ballista actually still rears his head and shows up in maps sometimes. The artist popping up on a tower or on a wall. It's like, that would be cool. Yeah. They still want to get in there and make it work.
Well, we had one in OMD1 where you could mount.
You could mount, yeah. And just more traps. It was months worth of finding interesting, fun ways to kill things. A little disturbing to think about. War Mage developed, you can see the bottom, there are some of the more serious stuff we initially had, and then some of the more lighthearted stuff we have on the way. I don't know if you want to, we're going to get into how he's developed over time, but this is sort of his early pieces.
Yeah, we just kind of wanted to really make him kind of have a confident look, but kind of have the, sort of a goofy hero kind of feel, I think we kind of talked about him being compared to kind of like Ash from Army of Darkness or something, and that's kind of his personality. But so he's overly confident, but he's always, he doesn't really know exactly what's going to happen when he puts a trap down. He just kind of does whatever and hopes it works out. You can see he's trying to learn how to master the power of fire.
It was a nice blend of competent and a little not so much.
If he didn't talk, he actually the render.
Yes, it was when he started doing things that
Which goes for all of us up here.
Yeah.
So we'll spend the next 30 seconds.
There's a little bit of us in the war.
We're going to smart back.
So we shipped Orcs Must Die, got it out there. As you saw in the earlier slide, we got the 2011 strategy simulation.
That's a pretty accurate simulation.
Very accurate simulation, Orcs dying. And then we moved on a small group again in Orange Pod. Orange Pod's kind of our test bed. In the Orange Pod, we had a little group that worked on Hero Academy. Hero Academy players? We worked on Hero Academy. This game eventually, we started on iOS, and then most of you probably also saw that we, come on, change slides. There it is, we went to Steam with it. How many of you guys played it on Steam? You guys got the team. This was a fun, you want to talk about how that?
Yeah, so we were very bottoms-up driven at Robot. It's not the company leadership that decides which game we're going to make next or design this game in our off time. We look for the teams to come up with something they're excited about making, and there were a handful of guys in the studio who said, we really want to make a mobile game. iPhone was exploding, but we don't think there's a really great tactical strategy game, especially turn-based. Wars with Friends was big, and they pitched this idea that we all thought, that does sound cool. There isn't a game like that on iPhone. We'd like to play that, and that's where the idea came from. And after it released, it had a lot of early success. And the guys from Valve called us and said, you know what, we're all playing Hero Academy, we love it, would you guys consider putting Team Fortress into the game? And it took us about 10 seconds to say yes to that, and we got to work on it right away, and it was awesome working on that with them, especially our big TF2 players inside of Robot, especially the artists getting to work on these characters in this style, and this miniaturized version was really a lot of fun.
We were actually approached by a lot of different IPs to put in the game. But a lot of them didn't really fit. It felt like it was too much of a marketing plug, just like this. This really fit, and this ended up working with those guys, so it was a great fit.
We also won some awards for that one, too. We got 2012 Mobile Game of the Year from AIS again. One for the Adapt Game Center's Choice, obviously, and we got the must-have from Slide to Place. So that game went well. We did another mobile game. This was Chris's baby. Chris down there. Echo Prime. Did you guys play Echo Prime? It's also on Steam.
There it is.
This is on iOS and on Steam. It was Chris, why don't you talk about it?
So we continue to want to make iOS games because they're actually a lot of fun to make. And they're also really challenging because it's all about boiling down kind of this core feature or core ideas into something small and bite-sized. So we still wanted to make an RPG, and we love sci-fi. So we tried to do a sci-fi RPG on iOS, and it's actually, we're real proud of it. It turned out really good, and it's now 99 cents on your iPhone. So if you want to hit the store now, go ahead.
Not now, we talked about
After the presentation.
Thank you.
Let's get that guy a shirt. Somebody get him a shirt.
We need to get a slide. The guy in the front row
This guy.
gives us his seal.
Yes. And I add that endorsement. Front row guys. Then we worked on Orcs Must Die 2, which, how many of you played Orcs Must Die 2? That's where we got all of you. And again, it was time to evolve characters. You want to talk a little bit about this? We're moving because we got to get to you. So.
Yeah, so really it was just about, after the first game, he kind of, since there was no magic, he went off and got a job.
He just got another job. Because that's what you do.
He went to the Dwarven Mines and got a job. So, that was kind of the look that we kind of developed for him, his kind of work clothing. And, then the sorceress, this is kind of her, the rags of her old, sorceress or queen outfit or whatever that she kind of used to kind of piece the outfit together. So that's kind of where we landed on that.
Here's a bunch of new monsters. Lots of new monsters, lots of new traps.
Yeah, and I think all this stuff was stuff we didn't use.
None of these monsters were used.
No, there's a fire bat. There's a fire bat on there.
No, that's the mother.
That's
we didn't use big mom on that.
One of these days she'll be
The fire bats in the game are the babies, and this was the mama that we built, but didn't use. You can see there's armored hunters in there because hunters aren't bad enough. We figured let's make them also impossible to kill.
We talked about.
We have that now.
We talked about.
Yeah, we have that now for our own view. Unkillable hunters, right?
Unkillable.
Everybody loves them and never complains about them at all.
No, never. We'll get to that. After we did Orcs Must Die 2, we actually, in several interviews, kind of told everyone, we're going to let Orcs Must Die rest for a while. We're going to give it a little bit of time to breathe. That was mostly true. While Orcs Must Die was sleeping, we worked on more prototypes because we have way too many game ideas. So, who was on this? This was your baby, Lance, right?
This is my project.
Talk a little about Mithril.
Fish was the designer on it. One of them. But we enjoyed playing browser games, and with something that has some of that feel of age, make it easy to get into. Browser games are fun, they're hardcore, so accessible game. So we started developing a browser-based game. It's hex-based, and
iPad as well, right? We were thinking about
iPad
iPad browsers for this.
We spent probably about 3 or 4 months on this. It evolved in some different ideas, and we decided to go down a different route for a different game.
You can see we were using Orcs Must Die characters as the heroes there. Ogre. There's an ogre, there's the original War Legion.
A lot of us were playing games like Tribal Wars at this time, and we started to talk about it, and we're like, well, it's a fair game, but it's not like the deepest strategy. It's really kind of a how much time do you put into the game kind of game. And then we looked at it some more, and we're like, well, nobody's really doing this on mobile either. So we started thinking, hey man, maybe we can make a good strategic, like a deep strategic game, something that has that kind of feel that Age does in a strategy game, but put it in this format.
Another game we were working on over on the side, which was a very, very cool game, was this little gem. This one is called Lone Star. This was Ian's original baby. You want to talk about Lone Star a little bit as we move through these slides?
Yeah, I don't know if Lone Star's my baby. I was the designer on it. I love Lone Star, and I hope we get a chance to go back.
Your baby now.
I love my baby.
My love.
So we have this. There's a number of people inside of the studio who are very much into like emergent gameplay, and we wanted to make an emergent game. In fact, I was talking before about the MMO that we were talking about very, very early on. Even back in the late '90s, we were talking about an MMO that was an emergent experience. I mean, there's plenty of good reasons to play a linear story game. There's a lot of good linear story games, but for some of us, the thing that's really exciting is the idea of more of an open-ended sandboxy world. So we wanted to start building one, and we started working on a science fiction-based version of this. We called it kind of Space Robinson Crusoe. So the idea here was that there's a whole backstory for all this stuff. We were trying to mix a little bit of advanced sci-fi with modern day, like displacement of modern day equipment into a very far future environment, because we didn't want people to run around with, gluten orbs and things that they couldn't identify. We wanted them to run around with stuff that they had seen every day, but in a science fiction environment. So the idea is basically your ship has crashed on a planet and you have to figure out how to survive. And all the planets are randomly generated, the procedurally generated planets, and all the content, the people, the beings that are on there, and all the things that have happened on the planet before you got there. And they're all set up to run around correctly. They're not just things that are populated in there. If we drop down those guys, we dropped down a village of the things on the left, which were called chippies, I believe, when we were formed with them. They would go about their daily life. They would gather food, they would build houses. If you attacked them, they would fight back. They had a lot of motivations and they ran around inside the world. So the idea was putting this simulation together. Your ultimate objective was to get off the planet. And then our plan for it was to insert in new planets and new people and beings and new events that could happen there over time. So you could start playing the first adventure and then you could decide if you wanted to put more into it to make a more complex simulation as we went on.
So you could get off the planet and immediately crash on another one.
It's constantly crashing on new planets.
Now that you've given all the secrets away, we can't ever go make them.
Somebody can.
We had some pretty interesting things working. I think at one time, like the wolf creatures, we had them going, but they kept eating all the turkeys. Yeah. They go in and just clear the planet, eat all of them.
They would stalk the villages and kill
expand,
them.
so
it all sounds really cool. It all sounds real cool when you're talking about putting this thing together, and you have everybody in there, and all of a sudden, like, you're trying to manage an ecology, and you're trying to get all this stuff to work right. You're like, all the chippies have been eaten, and there's no berries left, and everything's dying because everything has murdered everything else. And there's no content left in the game.
Created an alpha predator that killed everything on the planet. So Lone Star was awesome. It was also a very, very big project. After Lone Star, we sort of looked at a smaller version of it that was called Victory. And this was a really interesting project. Namely, it was probably the first for anything we'd ever done. It was a shooter.
Yeah, we can kind of talk about the weapons and stuff.
This followed the same kind of feel that we had on the other side, where, without going into a bunch of detail about the backstory, the concept, again, was that we wanted to take things that people had seen, but put them into this new environment. So you could have stuff that was from this era. This was really only set 10 years in the future, but we were trying to make it make sense. So there's a whole reason why there's colonies that are being set up on other planets. So again, the planets are being generated emergently. We're putting these places together, and sometimes the planet is very close to a certain sun, and it's hotter or colder, or they have liquid methane on the planet, or whatever. There are all these different kind of environments, and the colony that would get put together would be different based on the planet you were getting. And then there was a laundry list of crises that could occur on the planet. The reactor could be cooking off, it could have been invaded by aliens, there could be space pirates that took it over, and you and your friends were a group of basically troubleshooters. You were going to show up on that thing, you had to fix whatever problem. You had to figure out what was going on, and you had to fix the problem that was happening. But the kind of deep hook to what we did was everything in this was simulated. I mean, everything. If there was a light bulb burning in the room, it was because wires were running to that room from a power source somewhere else that was giving it power. If there was air to breathe in the room, it was because there was air to breathe in the room. If you closed the vents and you turned off the air, they would turn on the vacuum, the things that were in the room that needed air, they would die. And if there was fire in there, the fire would go out. So everything was a system, everything was simulated, and you could start to do very complex behaviors. You could find a lot of different ways to solve the problems that we gave you. This was actually, we were shooting for, what year was that? We were shooting to show the first cut of this at PAX, in fact, when we decided that we weren't far enough.
Last PAX.
Speaking of things to kill, there's a lot of these.
Yeah, that was the first alien race in the game.
And these went through a life cycle, right? Depending on how long the infestation had been there when you landed, you could get little ones, or you could get this guy.
Yeah, so the longer it took you to finish, like if you showed up, the longer it took you to finish off the mission, the worse things would get, depending on how many colonists were inside of the base. Like, you could have more or less of these guys running if you weren't fast enough.
So after working on these prototypes, we decided, based on community and press and every single possible form of feedback, that we needed to just get back to killing orcs. Everyone was asking us for PvP Orcs Must Die. On the original game, it was like, you're going to do co-op, right? Then we did co-op, and the question immediately turned into, you're going to do PvP, right? Every PAX, that's when there was a line of people asking if we were going to do the next thing. So we decided to go ahead and do that. So only a couple of you have played Orcs Must Die Unchained so far, so let's go over what Orcs Must Die Unchained is. It's the third game in the franchise. Orcs Must Die Unchained is a multiplayer Orcs Must Die. Said that part already. It is 5v5 PvP Fortress Siege. You are trying to defend your fortresses still, but you're also trying to attack your opponent's fortresses. It is currently in closed beta. Excuse me. You can register for the closed beta at orcsmustdie.com. And we send out waves every couple of weeks with new invites for folks. If you want to get in immediately and get a bunch of free goodies, you can get a Founders Pack. We have Founders Packs at the website that give you instant access, and gold, extra heroes, and things like that. The good news is nobody in here is going to have to do that. You'll find out. So, before we get to talking about the game, I just want to show the closed beta trailer we used when we started that up.
Look who's back, and doing what I do best. This time, I'm bringing the flavor, and I've brought a few friends along. Let's see how the Unchained likes their rib getting finally. That's right, the Order will be doing a little bit of rib thrusting of their own this time. Finally, some good old-fashioned team combat. Did I mention everybody who's anybody's gonna be there? A virtual hero A-list, all fighting face to face. The good, the bad, and the and the handsome. We're collecting our own disposable minions, colorful and fun, and waste nothing spells. Is that a bear? Look at these little guys. Nice. This war is raging, and I don't think you want to miss out. Did everybody see that bear?
He's already.
We have him. There's armored bears in the game. And we just released our first bear hero this last Wednesday. Tundra is a polar bear. It's awesome. So, Orcs Must Die obviously is Orcs Must Die with offense and defense and a ton of new heroes. It's not just the War Mage and Sorceress anymore. We've got a whole backstory on it that's going to come out. Early on, we started basically just propping up what was already in the game, right? When we were trying to figure out what might this look like.
Yeah, this was just an image we kind of put together just to kind of see what that would look like. Seeing two teams, going head to head. And I think originally didn't we talk about one side would only send waves, the other side would only defend.
We've done everything. We did.
Yeah.
We did
Twice.
turns.
Why don't you give a quick background on what the game really is and what you think it is?
From the whole
The style of gameplay that we were going for here.
we're trying to get what makes Orcs Must Die fun. We were trying to do the logical extension of Orcs Must Die into a multiplayer version of the game. So we're trying to add in the offensive component. Everybody's had the experience of putting down the traps and fighting against the waves coming in. We wanted to give you the opportunity to be the person that's kicking in the door and leading the army into the enemy fortress. So we know the traps, and we know that setting up those defenses and building up a good kill box and trying to defend against the attack is a lot of fun. We thought we had a pretty good beat on that from the previous games. And so a lot of the focus for us has been on making it fun to fight through those traps. We've had to do an awful, we have tested so many versions of you take turns going back and forth, and traps hurt you or traps don't hurt players, and you're leading minions or you're not leading minions, and finally, about 8 months ago, I think things settled down enough that we were pretty happy with the kind of gameplay we have going on, which is simultaneous. So on your 5-player team, everybody's responsible for, it's a card-based metaphor, everybody has a loadout they take with them, and they get to pick what minions they want to take along. Minions all have strengths and weaknesses, the kind of attacks that will hurt them and the kind of traps that will hurt them more or less. So when you pick your traps, you pick your minions, you pick all the components that you're going to take, and then your team has to collude. They have to build the traps together, so you have to build your defenses together, and then you have to build your army together, so everybody's contributing to the army. And then as the game goes on, you and your buddies are trying to figure out, okay, this is the best kind of offense we can do, this is the best kind of defense. You guys go push on offense, you guys go hold them off. And you're going back and forth trying to prevent the enemy. Both teams have a rift, and you're trying to prevent the enemy from getting their army in your rift while you're trying to get your army in their rift at the same time.
We early on, the long hair, the awkward long hair.
Yes. So early on when we started this project, we thought it might be interesting to explore some new looks for the sorceress and war mage to kind of show, the time has passed and they're rebuilding the order and they have all this flashy gear. And so we tried some things with the hair, and the sorceress got these long braids in the back, some kind of big headdress, and then the war mage got kind of this like surfer look. And everybody started playing and going, is this the war mage? Is this the sword? Who am I playing? So it wasn't recognizable, so we ended up switching it back. And then the other thing too is that we on that previous slide, I actually want to say something about the gear. We wanted this kind of heavily order themed outfit for both of them, and then also with the wizard. And so they were almost too close together as far as their color scheme. So we changed that up as well, like them more unique as the heroes. So that's why she's coming back to
Vector Classic. We have explored a ton of new traps. If you're on the forums asking about traps, you're probably coming on the list. But keep asking.
Yeah, a lot of these are actually some orc themed traps. Now that you can play as orc heroes, we're starting to get some traps that are themed, like they're built from the orcs. So these are a lot of different
new levels.
New levels. This was something we explored for just to kind of figure out what it looked like in the world outside of the fortresses. So
Yeah, that's actually a very early level.
yeah,
Very early. One of the things I just want to go through, we do Twitch streams twice a week from inside the studio, just talk about stuff we're doing, and the question we get asked probably more than anything is the upcoming heroes and hero designs. We have a ton of design ideas in the forums. And I've talked before on our streams about this wall we have of just concepts for potential new heroes. Not necessarily going to be new heroes, but it's ideas that we have. So I actually grabbed a bunch of those and we threw them in here. I want to show you guys a bunch of hero ideas that we've got that nobody's seen before. Some of them may become heroes, some may become a couple of I like that kind of bot.
yes.
The eagle.
Yeah, so the artists they did an awesome job just kind of exploring just so many different ideas for heroes without having any kind of, a lot of these kind of didn't have write-ups at the time, so they were just kind of just brainstorming. So you see a lot of there's a pretty wide range of sizes, shapes, abilities.
Transparencies, suits.
Yeah.
Old Smoky.
Yes, Old Smoky, that's the name of the corner there. Very happy dwarf.
And then a lot of the heroes too, with all the different abilities and things from the first two games, like what was the statue?
That was the statue, yeah.
Yeah. I think the previous slide, there was even a character that was based around that.
Yeah. That's what's great too, is the history of the games gives us a lot to work with. And it's you guys here. You'll note this guy at the bottom is two guys, one sitting on the other guy's shoulders. They're very small. So, okay, we have a few minutes left here. Before we get to some of the cool prizes and such that you're going to hear at the end, you have questions. And we have less than 10 minutes worth of answers to talk to.
You want to go up to the microphone?
There was a microphone here.
Or maybe we can just listen for it.
Yeah, we can repeat his question for him. Go ahead. Right there in the middle.
How are you guys planning to handle, is it going to be DLC in the future, microtransactions? How are you going to handle that as far as keeping it from being pay to win, so to speak, type of environment with PvP stuff?
So pay to win is really a question about the content, not how we deliver it. We do an awful lot of work to make sure that the content that we put into place is balanced, so that really no matter what content, well, one, we match people up, we try to match them up so they will have similar levels. If you're a level 40 player, we're trying not to match you with a level 1 player who doesn't have any cards. But we also try to bake into the content that we put together, period, that just having something, there's no like, this thing is 1,000 times more powerful than this thing in our game. We give you other opportunities. So the one that I talk about the most often is that if you get a fire arrow wall, it's different than the regular arrow wall. It can do more damage, but it only does more damage if you set it up appropriately. If you don't know how to play it, you're not playing well, and you lay it out the way you would a regular arrow wall, it actually does less damage because the fire, you can't stack fire basically. So you have to know how to lay it out differently. That's the approach we've taken on all of our stuff. As far as new content is concerned, we're exploring right now the correct tempo for when we want to put new content into the game. We believe believe we're at 250 cards base for our core set. But we're looking at like a seasonal basis where we put those cards out and we do expansion packs during the season, and then at the end of the season we revise and we decide that we're going to put we're going to take some cards out and put some new cards in. But we always have like an official set. That way, if somebody doesn't come into the game 3 years later and have 1,000 cards they have to memorize or go get, there's always like about 200, 250 cards being played for that season.
Okay, question. Yeah, you can team up with buddies and play the game, so you can do like a co-op against the AI. It won't have a story structure like Orcs 1 and 2 at this point, but you can play against an AI.
Well, this is the platform for our game from here on out, right? So we're going to extend this as we go. So over time, that kind of content, where we go from co-op, or if we do single player, if we do endless mode, those things will all exist here.
We know that, especially coming from the history of the franchise, not everybody's a PvP player and they want to get in there and mix it up in a competitive game. So we have a lot of ideas for welcoming, fans that have enjoyed the experience in the past, but may not necessarily want to jump in.
There's a lot of content, but we're planning to do something where we'll have different resolutions for the dashboard and things like that. We'll have there'll be a lot. There'll just be a lot more. Like with traps right now, I think you guys may see there's a placeholder for a video that will show what the trap does and things like that will actually be added. So yeah, it's going to be ongoing.
But there's a lot of information that you want the player to receive in this type of game, because there's so many different things going back and forth in the depth of the game. So we constantly have arguments among ourselves of should we show this or should we not show this? Is this in the way? Is it not in the way? So it's an ongoing fun.
Let's try one or two more questions because I want to get to the cool stuff. Right here.
So, exactly, what kind of payment model do I need? How are you going to make money?
You can buy heroes, you can buy
It's a multi-level marketing scheme. That's what we wanted to talk to you guys about today.
We're really glad you came out today. I'm going to talk about a great opportunity. We sell the game. We sell. You can buy heroes directly, hero cards, and then we also sell packs of cards. You can buy bundles of card packs or card packs as if you were buying a physical card pack game. Yeah. And then within those, it can be like Lance was saying, traps, minions, heroes. It can be anything in there.
Will you be able to get everything in the game as well?
Yes, everything except for vanity. Everything that has any gameplay.
Yeah, like the usable traps and heroes and all that will be accessible to the cards, and there are various ways to earn card packs instead of just buying them outright.
We're really sensitive to that. We spend a lot of time thinking about, the fans that, and there's plenty that won't want to pay, so we want to balance it well.
Yeah, we want to play the game too, right? So.
Yeah, I'll play it.
Let's go in the back there.
Do you guys think you ever, at any point in the future, develop a spiritual successor to Age of Empires 3?
I think so. This question is, will we ever develop a spiritual successor to it? Did you say? I anticipated the wrong question.
Well, I'll answer it.
Okay, you have an answer?
We love RTS games, and we hope one day to make another. At Orcs Must Die RTS?
Write that down.
It's come up more in the recent past inside the studio about RTS. Yeah, it'd be cool to do again.
I think every time we talk about as a studio developing, like what's our next project going to be, we collect ideas from everyone in the studio, and we've got a list of something like 80 ideas in the folder. Literally, ideas are not the hard part. Every time we do
Justin, I'm going to interrupt you. We have time for one more question. So
we do
this, yeah, and then we need to wrap up.
I'm sorry.
That's our marketing director. He's a real jerk. I'm having fun here, Adam.
Can you guys? He set all this up. He didn't come up here because he thinks nobody believes marketing people when they talk. Can you guys cheer for him for setting all this up, please? Let's do one more question where you were pointing.
He's had his hand up a long time.
All right.
Yeah.
So the closed beta community really wants to know how Mother God is made.
We talked about this. The closed beta community needs needs to watch Insider Access on our Twitch channel. Because we talked about this on Tuesday.
I don't understand why everybody in the company has a handle. Why is Mother the most interesting?
I don't know. Everybody knows it.
Because you're the anti of being motherly.
Yeah, you're not motherly.
I don't know. The short answer is I don't really. The earliest that I can think about it is we had a thing back at the ensemble days when we were going. There's a couple of people that are involved in designing things, and so people who want to get a certain thing inside of the game would go talk to somebody, and if they got the wrong answer from, say, me, and I said, no, we're not going to do your feature, they would go ask one of the other kind of lead designers. So it turned into a mom and dad kind of thing, and I became the mom version of the mom and dad.
You can see why.
But I didn't like mom because that sounded not cool, so I decided mother was cooler because there's a lot of mother stuff that seems cooler. So I picked mother. So it's been there for a while.
Let's give him stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys already got this stuff, right? Everybody's got theirs?
If you didn't grab it on the way out,
Yeah, if you didn't get it, you can get it. But in addition to this, we wanted to give you a little something extra. I mentioned earlier about beta code, and you guys don't have to worry about any of that stuff for buying a Founders Pack. Because we have an exclusive Founders Packs for you guys that are here in the room. The people on the stream should be getting them too. What is inside this exclusive Founders Pack? You're all going to be getting cards right now. The enforcers here, who are awesome, are going out and handing these cards to you guys. Inside of these cards, on these cards you're going to find a code. You can go to register at orcsmustdie.com, create your account, and you can redeem this code. It's going to get you instant access to the closed beta. You can start playing tonight. It's going to give you $40 worth of in-game gold. It's going to give you 5 additional Founders Heroes on top of the 5 heroes everybody starts with. And it's going to give you 4 friend beta codes that you can share with 4 of your friends and build a team. But we're not through yet. Those of you who know us know that at Robot we are big fans of the Penny Arcade guys. And if you remember on OMD1, we did this. We did the Cardboard Tube Samurai skin for the original Orcs Must Die as a PAX exclusive promotion. And we decided that this would be a good time to bring him back in a special edition. So, you guys get... So you guys all get, if you're in this room, you get the exclusive Cardboard Tube Samurai War Mage Vanity skin for Orcs Must Die Unchained. This is a new version of it. You guys and some guys on our Twitch stream are the only ones who get this, so it's very, very cool. Those cards are being handed out right now. Thank you everybody for coming out today. Don't forget, in case you still like free booze, the ODU community meetup is happening tonight at Rock Bottom in the Summit Room. Come by between 6 and 9. Free drinks until 8. If you have other questions about the games or game development that we didn't get to today, we will all be there so we can answer those questions for you. Everybody watching the stream, thank you for watching. And yeah, you guys can sit there when we go to our Twitch channel.
Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts at MMOreporter.com or by clicking on any of the links here. And please check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMOreporter. Thanks, everyone, and see you in game.